Some languages fade, others are erased. Bittalonian did not vanish, it was buried. What remains are fragments, but in these fragments there is something strange, a way of speaking that forced you to say not what happened, but how it lasted. This is a story of a language that encoded resonance itself. The lights buzzed in uneven pulses, casting a dull haze over the classroom. The air smelt like old carpet and long-forgotten coffee. Professor Sutherland sat hunched in his chair, pen tapping against the desk, eyes flicking to the clock. The last presentations had blurred into a single, lifeless stream of cautious voices and safe observations. No risks, no real discoveries, just a parade of words that would disappear the moment they were spoken. 2 more students. "Hannah Lowell," he called, barely looking up. A pause, a rustle of papers, then soft footsteps. Hannah approached the lectern, moving like she had all the time in the world. Her oversized sweater hung loose around her, sleeves bunching up at the wrists. Her glasses sat slightly crooked, and her hair looked like it had been tied back in a hurry, or maybe abandoned halfway through. She adjusted the mic, which gave a sharp squeal. A few students chuckled. Hannah didn't react. She clicked the remote, and then the first slide appeared. Bittalonian grammar and resonance markers. "My presentation," she said, voice quiet but certain, "is on Bittalonian, a language that no longer exists." Sutherland glanced up. That wasn't what he'd expected. Bittalonian was spoken by people who were conquered, absorbed, and erased, she continued. They left no living descendants, no oral tradition, no last speakers. All we have are fragments, trade records, diplomatic texts, and a handful of references written by their neighbours. She clicked to the next slide. A passage translated from an old diplomatic letter. "The Bittalonians are clever with wood. Their tools are practical but lack refinement. Their words are strange, lacking our poetry." "The irony," Hannah said, "is that the people who wrote this had no woodworking tradition of their own. We don't know what they meant by lacking refinement, just that they didn't see the value in what they were looking at." Sutherland felt a shift in his posture, his pen hovering above the page. Another click. A second passage, from a trade log. "Their language has too many endings. A single word can mean several things. Confusing." This was written by a frustrated merchant, Hannah said. But for linguists, it's a gift. Because what they dismissed as confusing turns out to be one of the most intricate features of Bittalonian, its tritransitive verb system. A faint rustle ran through the room. She clicked to the next slide. "Naomi, Vethor, Sam. Glossed. Sally gave Sam a gift." "Here's a simple neutral statement," she said. "Subject, verb, direct object, indirect object, but..." Another click. "Naomi, Vethor, Sam, Lon. Glossed. Sally gave Sam a gift that carried meaning." The marker lon adds resonance. It tells us that the action wasn't just completed, but that it also mattered. But this is not a complete Bittalonian sentence. A student in the back frowned. Why not? Because some Bittalonian verbs require a third object, an explicit resonance marker, to be grammatically correct. She clicked again. Naomi Vethor Sam Lon Berry. Gloss. Sally gave Sam a gift, and it weighed on him. In this case, Berry is required. It doesn't just say that the gift mattered. It says how. Did it burden him? Was it an obligation? Was it a deeply personal exchange? Sutherland leant forward, his pen tapping against his notebook. So it's like emphasis. No, Hannah said, tilting her head slightly. It's structural. In English, you can say, she gave him a gift, and stop there. In Bittalonian, stopping there would feel unfinished, like saying she gave him a gift but, and never completing the thought. She clicked to another slide. Mela Taithor Ellen. Glossed. The elder told Ellen a story. Mela Taithor Ellen Burr. Glossed. The elder told Ellen a story that resonated. Mela Taithor Ellen Burr Loss. Glossed. The elder told Ellen a story and it changed her. In Bittalonian, certain verbs like give, tell, teach, and strike require a resonance object. Without it, the sentence is grammatically incomplete. It forces the speaker to decide not just what happened, but how it landed. The student in the back frowned. But who decides if the action mattered? The speaker, Hannah said without hesitation. It's not about the listener's reaction, it's about the intent. Another slide, this time a formal inscription from a neighbouring empire. They had no governance to speak of, no laws worth remembering. She let the silence hang for just a moment before speaking again. Except that we have Bittalonian legal contracts, some of the most detailed trade agreements of their era. A few students shifted in their seats. Sutherland exhaled slowly. So they did have laws. They had written laws, Hannah corrected. But what they didn't have was a government structure their conquerors recognized. She then flipped to her last example. Veli Lathor Kera, glossed. They built a home. Veli Lathor Kera Lon. They built a home that carried meaning. Veli Lathor Kera Lon Miss. Glossed. They built a home, but it was never theirs. Resonance markers weren't used in trade records, she said, or contracts, or legal disputes, but in poetry, in letters, personal accounts, everywhere. Sutherland leant back, pen resting against his chin. How much of this system do we actually understand? Hannah was quiet for a moment. Enough to know what we're missing. She paused for a moment, then clicked to the final slide. Language as memory, the legacy of Bittalonian. In the end, she said, tritransitive verbs and resonance markers tell us what Bittalonians thought was worth remembering, what mattered. But no one who spoke the language is left to tell us if we're actually right. She stepped back from the lectern, the silence now different. No board shifting, no half-hidden phone screens. Then, slow, quiet applause. Hannah gathered her things. She was halfway down the aisle when Sutherland spoke. Hannah. She stopped. He hesitated. then gestured at her notebook. Do you have more on this? She glanced at it, then handed it over. It's just notes. Sutherland flipped through it. Pages of careful, obsessive study. Grammar trees, verb paradigms, cross-referenced footnotes. He looked back up, but she was already moving towards the door, her loose sweater trailing slightly behind her. He exhaled and set the notebook down, turning back to the front. The next student was setting up their slides. Sutherland glanced at the front page of her notes again. He would read them, but he would never read Bittalonian. Some stories stay with you. If you're in the mood for another one that lingers, you know where to find it.